And this is just one of probably several workshops that we're going to have. But I asked Josh if he can just be here this morning to briefly discuss. Obviously, the court took action a couple meetings ago. Is that feedback?
Feedback, yeah.
Must be the beard.
No, that was
All that
him.
energy. Oh, that's,
That's right.
They're used to me.
But we feel like it's important to sit down and discuss this. I got a couple meetings coming up next week, and we'll probably have a follow-up meeting after that. But without getting too much into the details, if you just want to give an overview.
so yeah, I can give kind of a synopsis of what, kind of where we are with the industrial park. As United Systems and Software is completing their construction, we've known all along that infrastructure was going to be this continuous thing at the industrial park. I mean, it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We don't just get it all done at one time. So what we found is that the pressure, from what I'm being told, there's enough water and enough water can be made, but the pressure from the water tank is not great because it's too low. So we have a pressure situation. We're able to service United Systems and maybe another company of smaller, scope. But beyond that, for a larger mid-sized manufacturer that might have more of a capacity need, we're not going to be able to serve them up front. Doesn't mean we can't serve them. It just means the infrastructure is not currently there to serve them. So that's kind of some where this conversation needs to go is, we've obviously put in a grant for that. The state's not funded for a pad-ready site, and we've got a site visit, virtual site visit for that Friday. But I guess my bringing this to you all, if we can't serve larger sites, then we don't need to be putting the site in front of companies who are going to need larger service. And I think there are options to that, and those are some things that you all can discuss. Could you show that you've put in the planning and the engineering for something that can be done? Yeah, you could do that. Or putting the infrastructure in place, yeah, you can do that. That's not a decision I make. I just think it's time we start thinking about, what's priority right now, and it's going to be not just having enough water, but having the pressure in place to make sure that it can be served. So,
Well, and as we've discussed all along, this was a long-term plan that actually turned out to be a short outcome, which is a good thing. It's a good place to be when you have tenants moving into the industrial park. But as the court took action, and Josh and we were talking, and I told him, I said, well, the court took action on the pad-ready site, and that is moving fairly quickly. That on the bigger picture, the state comes in and they actually will push future tenants or potential tenants to the site. Right. And what he's saying is that, that ball is rolling. It's not funded. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. But
yeah.
The biggest thing is that you've got an entity that can push future businesses that are out there looking to this site. And for him, it makes his position a little bit difficult because, the way it was designed for two tenants, basically. I mean, they just did a test last Monday. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be some future discussions on that. We've already discussed that to some degree. But without going into that, the court took action to utilize the state economic office. And I felt that it was important that the court make that decision, not just me, as far as do we want to continue with that, or do we want to step back and put that on hold? So I think that's really where we're at.
Yeah, and to that, it becomes a very good point. If, you know, the grant that we applied for, hindsight being what it is, if we'd have thought about the pressure being an issue, we would have probably looked at a longer term water project instead of a pad ready site, which is fine. But if you all, you know, decide, hey, let's pull back on that and make the water an issue, it's not a bad thing. It's a really good problem to have. Like Judge said, most industrial parks sit for quite some time before they actually have a tenant. And we, I think, bought it and announced a project in the same month. So
Yeah.
it
Well,
was
yeah, and if you look at some of the surrounding industrial parks, they're actually expanding their infrastructure for companies that come in. It really, as far as options, we can stay the course, but as far as the cabinet, I don't know, you know, from that perspective, I think the court needs to know.
Yeah, in essentially the grant that's not funded, by the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah,
The site visit that we have, they will ask about all of the utilities. So if, you know, there are questions about the water, we want to be honest about that. And we need to be honest about that pressure situation that we have currently. And we can say, yeah, we've looked at that. We've known that would be an issue up to a certain point, whatever the case might be.
and let me interrupt you real quick, just so that you guys understand, if you're questioning or wondering or not, it was designed, there was no issues with it, how it was designed. You got one tenant out there, and then it's probably got enough pressure, depending on the load, you never know what's going to walk in.
Right.
But we're at that point where it's moving so fast that obviously water in this county is an issue. As far as an issue for discussion.
Yes.
You know, stuff that should have been done, you know, we can get outside the industrial park and talk about water, in which we have. I mean, there's been discussions outside of the industrial park. But the issue with the industrial park, with the action that the court took, you know, makes his job very difficult to go out and market when we don't have anything on the table as far as a future plan in the infrastructure. Now, here's the other side of that. We don't own that infrastructure. So it's going to be a collaboration of everybody involved. But the state right now, there were 27 applicants, 14 of those were chosen. We were one of them. I think the biggest issue for the court today is to make a decision. Do we want to continue down that road, or do we want to pull back, focus on the water discussions that are going to be coming, or do we want to go continue moving down the path? And I think at the end of this month, middle of this month, we'll have some future discussions. I know I got a meeting on the 18th, but I think you are more concerned with that relationship with the cabinet.
Yes, with the cabinet and with the site selectors who are leading the visit, because you know, knowing what we know now, I think, you know, we always want to be upfront and honest with whether it's the cabinet or a site selector, because they're the ones who bring you projects in a lot of cases. So, you know, I think that if the court decides to move forward on this pad-ready site application, I do think that we need to have that honest conversation with them during that site visit that, hey, you know, what we're learning is that we do have a pressure situation, and we're in the process of collaborating to figure out a long-term plan for that. But more than likely, that's going to kick us out as far as marketability is concerned. You know, and even from a project perspective, if there were a plastics project that was looking at the state of Kentucky, and we were to submit an RFI, I would have to provide that PSI, in that RFI anyway, and it would probably disqualify us because they would need, more water pressure. So, yes.
And there are grant opportunities that the court can apply for, present. That's going to obviously be another discussion at another time. So there are opportunities out there, and that's going to be collaboration with the community that owns the infrastructure. So it's a unique situation to be in, but it's a good position to be in because there's a lot of interest. And we want to make sure that we're with our partners. I can imagine, he's out there trying to sell something, and we've got to get everybody up to the table and making it a priority to push it. So that's where we're at. But I asked him, that's something that I can't make a decision on my own because the court took action on that. So that's why we're here today to discuss that.
And this is a site selector for the state as to who receives these.
Yeah, so basically
This grant.
this particular grant that's not being funded this year again.
Let me make sure I'm right here. It's not being funded this year. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
So
Good to know.
the Kentucky Association for Economic Development worked with the cabinet on identifying the funding for this grant. To keep it apolitical, the cabinet and KAED worked with a site consultant group. So they asked for proposals from site selector consultant groups, and they landed on a particular site selector. So they are working in contract for, but they do not work for the state. So they are actually working, throughout the country with projects that are looking for sites to locate. So it's great, it's great that they're familiar with our site, and they're a great group. But I do think that from, preserving our integrity at the community level, we want to make sure that even with our site selectors that we're saying, hey, look, we're stepping back and we're prioritizing, because I can promise you that the state and everyone else involved in economic development in this state see the momentum that we've in the how quick this has come together for us with Southwest One Industrial Park. So we just want to make sure we preserve that integrity. And it's okay to say no sometimes. Sometimes grants don't work out, and I don't want to ever come present something to you guys and get a 50% match on it when we should maybe step back and take another look at priorities. And this won't be the first time that it happens. So,
Yeah.
Well, and I think the biggest takeaway, obviously, we want to safeguard our asset and our interests. This is a when you're talking about Southwest One, it's not just this fiscal court. Y'all know that. We've got the city of Benton and tenants, that are already in there. But we want to safeguard our asset to make sure that it's clear that this isn't a negative problem. It's actually a good problem to have. It just goes to show how fast the environment out there is turning. When we sat down, we never dreamed. We always said there's that potential, but we never dreamed it would be moving this fast. And we're going to have some future discussions on this when it comes to water. But for right now, I thought it was a good idea to bring it to y'all and say, look, good initiative in trying to move the ball forward, but I think this takes precedence.
Yeah. If I'm hearing this correctly, it doesn't make sense to me that if you're telling me that once you explain the situation to the site selector, that it's pretty much going to be disqualify us, that we would even have the site selector.
I think probably if the conversation would go something like, this is a great project for a pad-ready site, But hindsight being what it is, honestly, if we next time we put together a product development project, it probably needs to revolve around water.
Yeah.
So,
Well-
we would want to be honest with them that,
Well, but here, yes, but here's the thing, the court hasn't taken any action on that, so technically he
Right.
can't say that. Your hands are handcuffed.
well,
Because we haven't taken any action to put something in place, and that's really what we want, is to have something in place. But this timeline has happened fairly quickly. In the best scenario, we would love to say, yeah, here's our actual action that the fiscal court took for this issue. Go ahead,
But you're not asking for a plan today.
no.
no,
Okay.
no, no.
All right.
No.
I'm just making sure because this is something that just,
No,
No,
the court has already
We could
taken
go.
action on doing
on
the,
that, yeah.
yes. For us to step back, I can't make that decision because it's a court action. So it's the court's going to have to make that decision. And we're both sitting here saying that it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
right.
okay. This is not something that is damaging to.
Okay to step back
Yeah,
from
it-
without
Absolutely, because
Absolutely.
future damage
Well,
of,
yes, because number one, the grant's not funded anyway.
I think I've heard that.
Number two,
Yeah.
the site selection consulting group will appreciate the honesty from the community.
Okay.
So that preserves the integrity. And number three, if it is funded in 2021, there may be an opportunity for us to apply again with
The
a different
knowledge
kind of
of what we're
project that
doing.
makes much
Yeah.
more sense.
Yeah,
that,
okay.
that obviously we're going to have to meet on. So
Right, yeah.
that's going to happen here pretty soon. But it's just and I just want to be perfectly clear with people at home that watch, and I know WPSD is here, that this is in a situation like this is the right thing to do, is to sit down and collectively discuss this, and like Josh says, keep the integrity.
Yeah, it's a great site. We know it's a great site,
Yes.
and we've known all along that infrastructure was going to be a conversation that we're going to have for a long, and will continue to be 20 years from now, hopefully. But yeah, it's okay for us to step back from this and say, okay, we really need to collectively come together to figure out a strategy moving forward. As far as that's concerned, and it's okay for us to pull back from this, and in the future, should grant opportunities arise, and I come to you guys for a match or whatever the case might be, it'll probably we'll all know what that will center around because we'll have that long-term strategy in place. Does that make sense? And then once we get to a point where we're comfortable enough, maybe we can look at a pad-ready site or whatever, whatever that might look like. So
Okay.
I just need you guys to tell me what you want to do.
So, and I want you guys to understand, and I'm sure you guys understand that, or understand this. If a company were to come in tomorrow and say, we want to locate out at Southwest One, here's what we're going to need. Both the county and the city is going to have those discussions, and to meet those needs. And that's essentially the situation that we're in.
Yeah.
With that marketable site out there, that can happen. I know that I just sent you some information on a company that's looking to come to Marshall County. It's out there, and it's moving fairly quickly. So, but for right now, an action would be the court approved for Josh to put a grant in, and he did that. But I feel like it would be appropriate for the court to, as we discussed today, to take action on either continue moving forward or actually withdraw from that grant.
I move that we withdraw from the grant.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a workshop, so next.
I move we go into whatever we can do to,
Well, yeah, and I apologize for that. It's not an actionable item today, so I'll have it on the next agenda for action.
but when's he,
So this is time sensitive because the the virtual site visit is actually at the end of this week. It's
That's what I
scheduled for
thought.
So it sounds like everybody is in agreement that when action can be taken, it would be okay for me to go ahead and call all of my utilities and site selectors and let them know that we're gonna back out of this application.
You may need to have a special call meeting.
Without there
We need to
being-
meet tomorrow.
We can do that, yeah. To make it more efficient, I don't think.
That's
yeah.
fine. That's
We
fine.
we can meet tomorrow or Wednesday, whichever works best for everybody's schedule.
Well, I would think for his purpose, it needs to be tomorrow if it can be.
Tomorrow's good.
So that you,
Yeah, I mean, sooner the better, because
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a lot of people to notify, so.
8 a.m.?
I've
no,
got
let's,
a doctor's appointment at 8.
oh, shoot. 0600 then?
What about 1?
What'd you say?
1,
Okay.
that work for everybody? And Corey will put out the, as soon as we get done here, she'll put out the notice. All right.
Thank y'all.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.